Today we're going to be comparing the Grog Squeezer Mini in the 5mm nib size and the On the Run Soultip 007 10mm to see which is better for you as a graffiti artist and a graffiti writer. Anyone who's seen any of my reviews of graffiti mops, graffiti markers, paint sticks, spray paints, all that good stuff probably knows that most of the time I advocate for trying different graffiti products out to see which one you personally enjoy using the most. But I am certainly no stranger to the dilemma of having 10 bucks that you can buy graffiti supplies with, and you can't necessarily afford both of these nice little graffiti mops. And because of that, and because so many subscribers have asked me this particular question, Sciz, which is better? Should I be getting the Grog Squeezer Mini in the 5mm nib size, or should I just go with the 007 Soultip 10ml? So because of that, today we're going to be doing a full surface tagging test with the Grog Squeezer Mini 5mm as well as the Soultip 007. I'll be telling you about the similarities and differences between these two lovely graffiti mops here, and all that before I tell you which one of these I personally have been using more often and more regularly and why that is. So if all that sounds good to you, let's get into it. So just quickly before we head over to our surface testing area and throw some tags up with both of these wonderful graffiti mops, I just wanted to outline why exactly we're comparing these two mops in particular by looking at some of the similarities and differences between the mops. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with all the stats of each of the mops because I do have dedicated videos specifically to the Soultip 007 10ml as well as a dedicated video reviewing every single nib size of Grog Squeezers in the mini edition. So if you do want to know all the details, you can see those videos in the cards in the corner, or I always link them in the description as well. And something else you'll find in the description if you do happen to want to pick either of these up for yourself is links to where you can buy those. I try and link some sort of value pack deals to save you guys some cash. So on the surface, these two mops actually might not look that similar, and that's due visually at least to the Grog Squeezer Mini here in the 5mm size specifically, holding 30ml of paint or ink, and the 007 Soultip holding just 10ml. That being said though, I do want to emphasize that these are both extremely carryable. They're very nice to carry in your pocket, and in the case of the Soultip 007, it's so small you could even throw it in your sock or something like that if you really wanted to. It is just minuscule. The only other major difference I specifically want to outline is that the body of the Grog Squeezer Mini I find on average to be a little bit tougher and harder than the bodies of these nice Soultip 007s, and that's not to say the Grog Squeezer is a tough, hard marker. I think more it just outlines just how nice and squeezable these 007 markers are. But hopefully visually I'll be able to outline the differences in squeezability when we get to our surface tagging test. Like I mentioned, both of these mops are extremely compact. Furthermore, the nib sizes are identical, although Grog claims theirs is a 5mm and the OTR one says right on it that it's a 6mm round tip. The nibs are identical and exactly the same size. Trust me, they are interchangeable. I have done that to save you guys the time. Aside from that, I think it's best we just head right on over to our surface testing area and throw some tags up to really get a better idea of the actual similarities and differences. That way, that's the best way visually to highlight what each of these graffiti mops actually has in store for you, the graffiti writer. So if that sounds good, I'll see you over there. Welcome to the testing area, everyone, as we get into tagging up some subscribers' names who have either shown support on the channel, supported me on my Patreon, or supported the channel just by grabbing some of this ScizGraffiti merch. By the way, I just updated the Electric Sciz shirt I'm wearing here to have some white font. You can check that one out. It's new in the store right now. First link in the description to that. But we'll be tagging up those subscribers' names while I tell you and show you, number one, how the OTR Soultip 007 and the Grog Squeezer Mini 05 feel, meaning how squeezable are they? Do they feel nice and comfy on the fingers to write with? That sort of thing. Number two, I'll also give you a bit of history in my experience about how these mops hold up over time. I have used both of these for several years. And number three, I won't dwell on the formulae of these mops too much because you can't obviously fill them with just about anything you want, but it is worth mentioning that they do come with the Soultip paint and the Grog full metal paint respectively, or the Grog buff proof ink. So starting off with the Soultip 007 10 milliliter here, I know some people are going to ask about it, so I'll tell you right now, the color I'm using in it is hot pink. And as far as the squeezability of this mop goes, you cannot get anything better than this. You can squeeze the mop so that the sides touch each other in the middle, and it's small enough that it's nice and comfortable to write with, basically. But as you can see, even with the lines that I got on a very smooth surface, you can squeeze enough that you're getting these nice, complete lines, very little streaking, even though it's on a smooth surface that is that smooth. So very good, very controllable. I really love the feel of this mop is what I'm trying to get at here, I guess. One thing I will add, only because the last mop I used was a normal 10 mil mop, going back to this 5 mil size, you really do notice just how tiny the nib size is. And you do have to sort of adjust your writing a little bit, and it reminds you that this 5 mil size really is a little bit better for sort of tinier areas. As far as these Soultips go, I have a couple different ones of them just because I do really enjoy them in general. So I have used each of the ones that I have over, I'd say 3-4 years in total. Both of them, the bodies just are totally fine. I take really good care of my mops, so they hold up really well. As far as the nib goes though, it's not the greatest. Nibs specifically in the 5 mil size, I find they just wear out really fast. My thinking is it's that the little compressible bit in the middle of the nib, that sticks out a little bit higher than it does on slightly bigger mops, and because of that the nib wears out a little bit faster. Either way, I just find 5 mil nibs wear out fairly quickly, and OTR in particular, they try and give you the nice mohair nibs with some of their bigger mops, but this little one, it's just a normal cotton nib, I believe, or at least it writes like it because it doesn't hold up particularly well. I've had to replace the 007 nibs more frequently than I would have expected having first bought it, I guess is a good way to sum it up. I said I'd briefly mention the formula, and that's what I'll do. I'll keep it brief. The hot pink especially, it's just a very nice color. Unfortunately, this surface doesn't really give it the best chance to shine. I really miss the black surface that I had a little while ago. I'm in the process of getting another one of those, but the formula for the Soultip paint especially is nice and drippy. It's a little bit of a thinner formula than say the Grog is. The opacity of that Soultip paint too, I've never really had a problem with. You can see that it stands up pretty well on this surface. Now moving on to the Grog Squeezer Mini here. This Squeezer Mini is the only one I have had. I've had it for several years, so the colors in it, there's probably remnants of between 5 and 10 different colors in it, but mainly what I'm refilling it with right now is I had the Goldrake purple before, and I've sort of mixed it in with a pink of sorts, and it is Jellyfish Fuchsia. And before, I had a lot of nice things to say about how the OTR 007 Mini felt writing with it, in large due to that nice squeezable body. And I do have to say, after writing with the 007 and immediately switching to the Grog Squeezer Mini here, you do notice that it is just that much tougher. It's not quite as free feeling in your hands exactly. On the other side of that though, I have noticed that the Grog Squeezers do loosen up a little bit over time, as any polyplastic will. That's not unique to Grog or anything. I'm just saying it will loosen up up. And this one in particular is just a nice squeezability for myself, using it regularly for a long time. Unfortunately, the Grog Squeezer here is similar in one way to the Soultip, and that is the nibs. I just find don't stand up that well, probably for the same reasons I outlined before previously, so I won't talk about that too much. The paint, I have a feeling this nib that I have replaced it with is a little bit clogged, just because I had a lot of trouble trying to get a nice smooth line going. That being said, I find the purples, blues, and pinks from Grog really have a nice tone to them. One thing I found really interesting that I just have to mention is in this sick tag where it ran into the Grog buff proof ink a little bit there, the purple and the blue combining is a very, very nice color there. I really love that. So if you're ever looking for some nice combo ideas, maybe sort of the purplish, pinkish, and mix with some Grog buff proof ink might give it a real nice paint ink mix. Just an idea. And so that's sort of leading into the formula a little bit. The only thing I do have to say about the Grog full metal paint formula that is in here is that it is just that much thicker than the Soultip paint, and I personally, I really enjoy the nice thick paints. To me, the Grog paint is one of the better ones that you can get. Just the way it produces nice three-dimensional drips is very, very beautiful, especially if you know how to squeeze a mop in the right parts of your tag. So although you can tell massive amounts just by seeing some tags with these graffiti mops being thrown up on a surface like this, it's always great to hear what other graffiti artists and graffiti writers think of these mops and what their experiences are with mops like this that they have been using. And this is where you guys can chime in the comments, let everyone know if you've used either of these, what you like about them, what you might not like so much about them, and even some other graph mops that you might recommend. And although I am just one graffiti artist, I did promise that I would tell you which of these, either the Grog Squeezer Mini or the Soultip 007 10 milliliter, I have been using more frequently recently and in the past. And I think hearing my reasoning for why I've been using each mop at different points in time might help you figure out for yourself which mop you might be best suited for as a graffiti writer or graffiti artist. So let's have a little chat. So for those of you watching right now, first off, thank you. Secondly though, good on you, because this part of the reviews that I do of graffiti markers, mops, even paints, paint sticks, whatever, this part of the review is usually where I speak a little bit more frankly about the products that we're looking at here, and you really do get more of my honest, unfiltered opinion about a lot of the graffiti products out on the market these days. And as promised, that's exactly what you're gonna get from me right now. I'm first gonna tell you which of these I use more in the past and which I've been using more frequently closer to present day, and why I switch in between them sometimes. So in the past, out of these two, I have been using this one for a long time in a street and train environment, and I think I got this one back in 2017. It's fairly old, and at that point I had already been using the other nib sizes of the Grog mini squeezers quite a bit, so I had already learned to like the Grog mops quite a bit, and I really did like this one as well for a couple reasons in particular. And these reasons are the ones you want to pay attention to sort of think for yourself, are these reasons that I would like this type of mop as well. The first of those reasons being the 05, the 5 millimeter size that is really just so versatile in a street and train environment. So you can do nice small tags. It's also thick enough that you can go a little bit bigger and bolder if you really want to. So I found that versatility quite nice with the combination of the 5 mil and 30 milliliters of paint. And the second big reason, although it's not the softest mop out there, the shape of it and the level of squeezability is totally fine, and it makes it a nice, comfortable mop, cozy on the fingers, as I like to say, and it's a nice, comfortable carry as well. And as you may have guessed, as of late, I will have to say I have been using the Soultip 007 10 milliliter more frequently, although to be honest, I haven't used either of these particularly frequently as of late. But I think with the 007 Soultip, the supreme squeezability of the body here combined with just the skinnier build of this mop really captured my appreciation when I first started using these 2-3 years ago. And just that combination of being such a nice, comfy mop and such a beautiful little tiny thing to carry comfortably with you makes it a great mop in general. And especially if you're sort of like the type of casual writer that is casual but always likes to have some sort of mop with you just in case you want to catch a tag here and there, this 10mm is a very nice option for you to have in that scenario. And on the flip side of that, the only downside about the Soultip 007 in particular that I have to mention is that the 10mm size is not great for that serial tagging application. So if you're on the polar opposite end of a casual writer, then the 10mm just doesn't really get you far enough. It's not exactly what you want. Whereas a 5mm size with 30 milliliters of paint, that actually gets you quite far, a lot further than you would think, really. So the Grog Squeezer Mini in that sense is a little better for those serial tagging applications, shall we say. And the other only major drawback that these share in particular is exactly what I mentioned before. Just the nibs I find aren't the highest quality, and I would go as far as saying that that is a general problem with 5mm nibs sort of across the board with respect to graffiti mops on the graffiti market. So although it is a drawback, it's not really one that I think you can avoid very well, specifically with this nib size. And as I mentioned before, I do recommend trying out both. I obviously have both of these here. I have multiples of this little guy, and I'm certainly glad I have both of these. But hopefully hearing what I have told you and shown you today in our tagging test will help you decide which you want to try if you're just looking to pick one up. Something else you might want to pick up though, if you have the money to spend, is a Tags, Throws, and Pieces t-shirt or hoodie, of course, or, you know, I have some other shirts that I designed and sell to help support the channel as well. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everyone who has picked a few of those up. I really do appreciate it. If you snap a pic of any of the shirts that you bought, I'll give you a shout out on my Instagram and maybe my YouTube community page or something like that for you. I have a whole playlist of specifically purely graffiti mop reviews that we have looked at here on the channel that might interest you. You can check that out on screen now, or you can check out some of the other series here on the channel. And hey, feel free to subscribe if you do actually want to see more of my videos appearing on your homepage. I hope to see you over in one of those videos soon. Until then, peace.